This is the Crappie Connection, brought to you by Redneck Rubber, Power Crappie, Visit Ridgeland, B&M Poles, K9 Fishing, Cornfield Fishing Gear, Bobby Garland Baits, Genco Fishing, Denali Rods, The Direction TV, Top Hat Jigs, Crappie Magnet, Anderson Minnow Farm,
Hook and Bullet Purpose-Built Optics.
About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back at the Grizzly Spring Show 2023. I've got it right every time, I think, now, Todd.
Yeah, on the second or third take.
No. Give me a little credit. Got my bud at the end there.
Todd Huckabee.
Also, we got another guy in the middle. You've seen him on the Crappie Connection before, huh?
Yeah,
Probably about third, fourth time, I guess, Travis.
something like that.
Go ahead and do a little introduction to yourself and tell us where you're from and that good stuff.
I'm Travis Bunting. I'm from Jeff City, Missouri.
And Travis, you've been around the crappie tournament scene for how many years now?
First time we ever fished was 2002
2002.
on the national level.
How many national championships you got?
3.
3 national championships.
How many tournament wins?
I have no idea.
More than 3.
How many different states have you won a tournament in?
Well, we've won national championships in 3 different states. I don't know. We've won in Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Mississippi,
Texas,
Arkansas. I'm sure there's more.
Louisiana.
We've been around.
Yep, no doubt about it. And, one of the things I got you on here, and Todd definitely thought about Travis this morning, was fishing shallow. So we want to go in and get some tricks and some techniques that you utilize to catch crappie whenever they're shallow. And each one of us probably has a mindset when it comes to shallow. But when I say the word shallow, what comes to your mind?
For me, anything under 6 foot of water.
6 foot or less.
Yeah, I think shallow, but we fished a lot of different tournaments and had a lot of different days that we fished in less than a foot and a half of water.
That would be super shallow.
You catch them fish and you can't figure out how you couldn't see them before you caught them. You'd think their backs would be out of the water.
What about Todd? What do you think about shallow?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. 6 and up. I mean, Eufaula is kind of like Truman, is kind of like some of these other lakes where, 25 years ago or even 20 years ago, even as soon as 3 years ago, when I would talk about these shallow fish on Eufaula, people seriously thought that I was just lying to them.
Right.
And then I run into a guy named Barry who grew up fishing on Truman Lake, who all y'all out there that are listening know. And he comes to Eufaula, and we own a store, and people would come in the store in August, and they'd say, "Man, how did y'all catch all them fish with your clients and stuff?" And we're like, "Oh, we're in the back of these pockets up in these creeks, and you got to get way back in there, and you got to raise your trolling motor up as high as it'll go, and we're in about 2 or 3 foot of water." And there'd be people that'd be like, "If you don't want to tell us, don't tell us, but don't lie to us." And I'm like,
That's what I would think.
Go out there and talk to our clients. I mean, when it's 100 degrees, that's where they are.
What do you think they're doing there?
Eating.
Yeah,
It's the most aggressive bite you'll ever have in your life.
especially in summertime. In the springtime, you don't really see that many shad when the water's cold. Not on the surface like you do in the summertime. Well, especially in a standing timber lake where you have really strong thermoclines, there's more oxygen in the upper part of the water column than there is down low.
Yeah.
There's times that you put on a live minnow and you put him 7 foot deep and he don't make it a minute and a half and he's belly up. You put that same live minnow down 2 foot and he makes it for an hour. because you're putting him below that oxygen line. You're putting him down there where he can't breathe anymore. It's the same thing with the fish. If the bait comes up in the summertime because they got more oxygen, all your predator fish, your crappie, your bass, whatever, they're going to come up with them.
Now, we want to talk about some of the techniques to get into whenever we're fishing. We'll all say 6 foot or less, and I would definitely say shallow for me would be 6 foot or less, and probably even shallow for me would be 8 foot or less even. That's shallow for me.
And when we're talking 6 foot or less, let us clear this up, because a lot of the terminology now when people talk about shallow fish is shallow fish suspended in deep water.
Right.
We're talking about that is the shallow depth of water.
That's to the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I want to know. Some of the techniques you got to utilize, both you guys are very good at it. This is probably one of my weaknesses, would be fishing for shallow. What would be some of the techniques you would utilize to catch shallow fish?
It's a long list.
Well, that's what we want to hear.
One of the things that Dad and I has actually done really well at over years, that's how we was just talking about how we want to follow, is what we call combing the banks.
Combing the bait.
So we got 8 rods out, spider rigging.
Right.
That first rod probably ain't a foot off the bank. So when those females are moving in and out of these bedding areas, plus, you got all the bucks and males up there already, we're going down through there, we're covering 30 foot, 40 foot from the bank out, which normally by your end pull, you're on that next ledge where them females will stage, when they're moving in and out of the beds. So you get covered at all. But we'll catch just as many fish on that first pole that's not 6 inches underneath the water surface as we all the rest of the poles.
Do you stagger those depths as that water gets deeper?
Yeah, we'll follow the bottom.
You follow the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of rig are you? We're talking about spider rig here for a second then. Captain combing rig or a weight on the bottom, or?
We normally we always tie it on our own. We use a 1/4 ounce jig on the bottom, and it always has some type of plastic on it.
Yeah.
Of course, for us, it's normally muddy water baits, but we use a lot of other stuff too. And then above that, we'd always go up, depending on the depth we're fishing, 6 to 12 inches, and we put a tag line with a straight minnow hook.
How do you do a tag line? What is a tag line?
We just tie it, the triple loop, whatever it's called. I don't even
Just
know
like
what
a
the
big
knot's called.
loop knot?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we start catching all of our fish on plastics, we'll start sliding plastics, up on that top hook also.
Do you use like just a standard minnow hook on the top?
Mm-hmm.
Like an Aberdeen or whatever?
Yep.
Okay. And right off the bottom and just kind of speed? Is there any kind of different speed levels that you would suggest on this?
Anytime we rig it, we're going to go as fast as the fish will bite.
Right.
So that way we cover the most water in the day, If the fish ain't going to bite anything over a 0.2, we're going to creep, But if we get up there where we could control 0.6, 0.8, whatever, we're going to do it. But you think about it, this is the way we started, the reason why we started doing it. You go in the springtime and you see a lot of people casting to the bank, Well, if you cast to the bank and drag back, and you move over 2 inches and you cast to the bank and drag back, it's going to take a long time to get down that bank. Well, we're doing it all at one time.
Yeah.
That's why we call it sweeping the bank.
And I guess that's one that's on the bottom. Mm-hmm. What's some of the other techniques, Todd? I don't recall you ever really spider rigging a whole lot, but...
No, I never did. I know nothing at all about it. But on our lake, to me, the most fun time for shallow fish is June, July, August, September, when it is really, really hot. Anybody wants to see it, come to Eufaula. I'll show you. And we can go catch some fish on brush piles and stake beds in 8 to 10 foot of water, sure. But I can take you anywhere down our bank on our main lake, and if you see a piece of wood or anything sticking up out of the water that's up on the bank in shallow water, we can go catch fish off of it. And as far as technique goes, it's just a long pole.
Yeah.
Single jig.
Old school as they get.
And used to, I always fish with 2 jigs. Always. 2 baits.
You're known for heavy jigs, big jigs.
And a lot of the times that I would be catching these shallow fish, only one of those jigs was in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's so many myths when it comes to crappie. People say, if you see fish schooling on busting the top, it's not crappie. Well,
yeah,
You come to Eufaula when there's a mayfly hatch. Those crappie, if there is any willow tree or anything like that that is hanging over the water that has those huge balls of mayflies,
Hell yeah.
more than likely, if you watch, you're going to see exactly this happen. A squirrel's going to go up into that tree because squirrels love to eat mayflies.
Really?
Oh, they grab
You're
them.
kidding me.
They just scrape them into their mouth as fast as they can.
I've never seen that.
So as they're doing that, there's those mayflies are dropping onto the water. Those crappie will be that deep up underneath that tree, eating every single one that falls. So as far as a technique goes, for that, you could fly fish. You could take a popper, just the cheapest little popper in here, put it on a fly rod, and catch those fish on top.
I don't know if I can get past this whole squirrel eating these mayfly things.
You've never seen
I
this?
have never even heard of that. Have you, Travis?
No.
Well, I guarantee you.
I'm not down. You don't get me wrong.
I guarantee you, you're going to have a lot of people comment on here, but like,
I've never heard
yeah.
that.
Oh, dude, it's the craziest thing you've ever seen. It's like the Cookie Monster. They're just like,
Really?
and their cheeks will pop out. They'll run down to the water and get a drink of water, and then they'll run back up there and just, oh yeah.
That is paying attention to detail. I would give that
Have
to
you ever seen
Todd Huckabee.
turkeys? You ever seen turkeys chasing grasshoppers?
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
No. That is not the same
It's
thing.
exactly the same.
Squirrel eating mayfly is totally different I've ever heard of.
Guarantee you.
I don't like I said, I don't doubt you. I think it's really cool though.
Yeah.
And you can catch fish in shallow water 12 months out of the year. We won a tournament in Perry, Kansas in the springtime, but it was early spring. The water temperature is 42 degrees.
Wow.
And I told Dad, I went up there the weekend before to pre-fish because I couldn't get off that week. I told Dad, I said, I found some fish if they don't move. Well, Thursday and Friday he was up there pre-fishing. I think he caught like 6 fish in 2 days. He didn't do very good. Well, we was fishing off a corner of a channel up on there's a big shallow flat up there. It's, all the brush, you could see it sticking out of the water.
Yeah.
We're out there spider rigging off that ledge, and Dad said, when are we going to go get these fish that you found last week? I said, we got to wait till that wind comes up. And then in the wintertime, the wind will move these fish. If you can get, like at Lake Ozarks, our home lake, if you can get the wind blowing in across the same point for a day, 12 hours, you can go catch fish shallow off that point.
And they're going to be on the windy side of the point or the tucked
Where
in
the wind's
behind?
blowing in, yep.
So actually kind of facing into the wind then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
But the water temperature is 42 degrees, and we get corks out, and we're slinging corks in 1.5 feet of water and just wearing the fish out. People would see us catch these fish, and they'd come in with a long rod, but, the water was clear because it was still so cold. They go on their long rod, and they'd dip around. Couldn't catch a fish. They'd leave. We'd wait a little bit, let everything settle down, and go start slinging them corks again.
What do you think that was?
I just think the fish were really shallow, and like I said, the water was pretty clear because
Boat
it was
would scare them?
I think they were spooking.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. What about like technique wise? I know we both said something about spider rigging, and of course Todd's going to use 2 quarter-ounce jigs a lot of time.
Oh, I've kind of downsized now
Oh,
with the
You've
live
changed?
sonar.
yeah. Is that as beneficial when we're talking about live sonar? Can you see those shallow 1.5 foot fish as well as
You can, but you don't have to.
right?
I mean, there's stumps like on Eufaula, up in Gaines Creek and some of the areas that him and I were talking about. 12 months out of the year, I can go in there and catch shallow fish just because I know those pieces of structure. But for somebody starting out, just try it. And you're not going to catch them off of every piece of shallow structure, but
I still kind of blow my mind about some of this.
I mean, it's just like Lake of the Ozarks. I've only been on it a few times. This dude fishes it a lot. And I don't know, it was probably 10, 12 years ago. I had a guy that, a buddy of mine, makes a ton of custom jerk baits.
Okay.
And this dude told me, he said, man, I just sold a bunch of jerk baits to a guy that's crappie fishing over on Lake of the Ozarks. Well, I mentioned it to him, and he was like, oh, yeah. He said, we catch them at Lake of the Ozarks in the winter with a jig and a cork all winter long, or a jerk bait.
Or a jerk bait, yeah. All the jerk baits you throw, they're only going 3 to 4 foot deep.
Yeah.
Now, you might be in deeper water, but some of the biggest black crappie I've caught off Lake of the Ozarks has been in the middle of the winter. You throw that jerkbait right to the bank, and on your first pull, he hits.
Guess you could catch a bass as well if you wanted to at that point.
We catch a lot of bass.
I would
We
think
do.
so, too.
But no, you could. If I was going to fish today,
Yeah.
I would start off shallow, probably with a cork, and then switch to a jerkbait.
What about, when you're going to these new lakes, let's pick out any of the big four in Mississippi. There's a lot of people that travel there to go fishing in the spring. I'm going to say a time frame between, let's say, March 15th and April 15th. What would you look for as a shallow area to crappie fish? And both of you guys can throw in that one.
In Mississippi, it'd be shallow mud.
Shallow mud.
We're like Ozarks. When I'm talking about sweeping the banks and stuff, we're actually looking for gravel or rock banks. But down in Mississippi, they don't have much gravel and rock. It's pretty well just shallow flats. I can tell you a story where I got my butt kicked because I didn't go shallow. We started off in the morning, and we're fishing an old ditch up here above the bridge in about 7 foot of water. We're catching a lot of fish. That water temperature heated up like 15, 20 degrees. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been too long.
I think I know which ones you're talking about.
Well, you've seen some boats just keep getting farther and farther and farther away. Well, we just stayed right there. Mm-hmm. Well, the people that kept moving with these fish and left that 7 foot of water and ended the day in a foot of water stayed on fish all day long. Well, we stayed out there where they started off when the water temperature was lower than what it was in the afternoon. Those fish, some of them moved 500-700 yards that day.
Yeah, springtime can be real tough for me to crappie fish. All right, I'll go another setup wise when you're spider rigging and sweeping these banks. What size pound test do you use?
We run 12 pound on the main line, 8 pound leaders.
Just mono, straight mono, high vis, clear vis?
High vis.
High vis?
Yeah.
In particular brand wise, or don't really care?
We used to always run Vicious, but now, it's K9 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I definitely appreciate the topic today. It's been entertaining, and I will not. This whole squirrel thing is kind of stuck on me now.
You're going to be YouTubing squirrels eating
I'm going
mayflies.
to.
But the one thing I want to leave here with is everybody. I'll never forget. One of the greatest guys, Rick Hill, used to come to Grizzly every year. Guy's a legend down at Darbone. And I was sitting in here, and it was about 6 or 7 years ago. And this guy had been sitting at my seminars year after year after year after year. If you saw him, you know who I'm talking about. He is a giant mountain of a man, one of the best fishermen ever. And I was talking about that there's always shallow fish. There's always shallow fish. And he was just sitting there, and he started shaking his head. And I said, all right, dude. I said, come on, let's hear it. And he said, there ain't shallow, he's got that Cajun. He said, there ain't always shallow fish. He said, because on my lake, they don't get the shallow in the wintertime. I said, when's the last time you tried it? He said, I ain't never tried it when it's cold. I don't go fishing. I said, well, how in the world can you say that if you never tried it? About a year later, he called me. He said, dude.
Say that accent again?
He said, dude, he was right. And
He must have been like that squirrel ate too many mayflies.
Yeah.
so try it. Everything we're telling you, try it.
Yeah.
Even on your lake.
Yeah.
And the one thing about when you're fishing shallow is, and this was my opinion anyways, is that you can cover so much more water.
It's very, very efficient. You're not having to reel a fish. You're not having to let an extra line out. If the water's only this deep, you're like, oh, nope, there's not one there.
And like you said, we do it all summer long, even on Truman. I took, Dad had been pre-fishing for a tournament. The day before the tournament, we took out Tim Huffman. I told Dad, I said, we're going to fish shallow today. He goes, there ain't no fish shallow. I said, we're going fishing shallow. And what I mean by fishing shallow then, a graph only reads down to like 1.6 foot of water, then it'll flash. Every fish I caught that day, the trolling motor wasn't reading the bottom because I was so shallow. And I think I had 5 fish in the boat over 1.5 pounds. Fishing, and it's in the middle of August.
I would not think none of this. This is kind of it's very enlightening for me. Because, like I said, shallow for me, 8 foot or less, And I mean, of course, the spawn in March and stuff, I'll go shallow, but day in and day out, I'm a 8 to 15 foot of water guy. I probably need.
Most of my reels don't have that much line.
I bet 85% of all the fishing I've done throughout my entire lifetime, with one pole in my hand, a 12-foot rod, I've never touched the reel. I've never put that much line out.
Well, you're not very good for the market, and you're not using much line there.
Yeah, I had a guy the other day ask me, he said, how long will one of these spools of braid last? And I said, about 10 years. He goes, how? And I said, because I've got a mono backer. Once it hits the reel and I reel it a few times, that's enough. And you just cut it off where you hook your jig on.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Well, super cool, guys. I showed us some comments out there how you fish shallow. And,
somebody send Brad a video of squirrels.
Yeah, I'd
eating
love to see
mayflies.
this thing.
I'm going to YouTube it.
Yeah, we will look for these squirrels eating these mayflies and stuff in our cheeks and stuff. But I've had a cool time, as always, with both you fellas. But Brad Chappell here.
Todd Huckabee.
Travis Bunting.
Voila.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift